India's consumer inflation rose in August for the first time in 10 months. It was mostly driven by food prices. The consumer price index rose 2.07% year-on-year and up from July's 1.6%. Indian equities extended gains this week. The Nifty 50 rose for the eighth straight session on Friday, closing higher alongside the Sensex. Soft U.S. labor market data and inline U.S. inflation reinforced expectations of the Federal Reserve rate cut next week. Hopes of a potential revival in U.S.-India trade ties also lifted investor sentiment. Bond yields reacted modestly, with India's 10-year benchmark yield inching up to. Meanwhile, the India rupee strengthened on Friday, recovering from a record low recorded in the week. While India's economy grew at its fastest pace in over a year last quarter, brokerages including Citigroup warned that global trade tensions could weigh on full-year growth. The RBI has cut rates by 1% since February and may resume easing later this year. Economists expect up to 0.5% more cuts. Mr. Ajay Bagga is a market expert. He's now joining us live from Mumbai. Mr. Bagga, thank you very much for making time for us and welcome to the broadcast. With inflation inching up in August, will the RBI have room for more rate cuts this year, do you think?
Yeah, inflation is still very low at 2.07%. So, and the core inflation is around 4.1%. So, RBI does have room for rate cuts, but in the October meeting, it might just hold its horses for now and watch the situation because the GDP growth has been quite strong in the first quarter at 7.8%. So RBI will wait and watch is what I think, and it might act later in the year as needed. So right now, I think it might not cut rates for the imminent policy.
Mr. Bagga, let's talk about the Fed cuts. How much of India's market rally is driven by domestic fundamentals versus global cues like Fed policies?
A lot of the market sentiment is really correlated with global cues. Normally the Indian market would have a very high level of correlation with the US market. So if the US markets went up, the Indian markets would benefit. That has broken for the last 12 months, where we have really underperformed both emerging markets as well as the US market, other developed markets. So I think overall, if you would like to put a number to it, the fundamentals are domestic driven, but a lot of the sentiment is global driven. And we used to be quite dependent on foreign inflows for our markets, but now that share of foreign ownership in our markets, it is at a 20-year low. So remember, the foreign investors really started coming to India in 1994 onwards. So on a 30-year basis, we have hit a 20-year low in terms of foreign investor ownership of the Indian market. So that's showing more and more. Increasingly, we are seeing domestic issues and domestic investors are really determining the trajectory of the Indian markets.
Let's talk about these foreign inflows and foreign investors who have sold Indian equities for most of 2025. Do you see them returning as net buyers? And if so, when do you see that happening?
Eventually, they will. When it will happen, we'll have to see our earnings growing faster. See, one number you can keep in mind, the Indian price to earning ratio. We have something like the price of the shares versus what profits these companies are making. And the world is at about 10 to 12 times price earning. We are running at 24 times. So we are a very overvalued market. That is justified if your earnings are growing very fast. What happened for us is that our earnings started going down as well. So last quarter, the June quarter, which has just gone by, our earnings grew by about 8%. While your market is showing a price to earning of 24 times. So that's showing that there is some amount of froth, some amount of overvaluation. When the FIs can really buy a market which is, say, trading at 10 times, 12 times, they would go there rather than overpay for India's growth. So either we have to increase our earnings or our markets have to fall. I don't think markets will fall in a jiffy because there are very strong domestic inflows coming in, which are supporting our markets. So FIs have taken out $16 billion in 2025 so far, but against that, nearly $50 billion has been invested by domestic investors. So FIs will return, but we will have to see earnings recovery, which I think is about 3 to 6 months away.
Mr. Ajay Baga, it's good to see you. Thank you very much for your time today and for talking to us.
Thank you.